Welcome to a tour around Homeacres in late April. We haven't done a tour for a couple of months, and this is a chance to show you everything that's been going on. It's been difficult. April, not very warm, a lot of rain, loads of slugs. You'll see some of that as we go by. And it's a fantastic example actually, this, of No Dig and how well it's coping with difficult weather conditions. And if you want to keep up to date with notifications from here and advice going forwards, do remember to turn on your notifications, the bell icon that will ring when we put up a new video, and please do subscribe as well, and that will keep you up to date with everything that we're putting out. There's a lot of information coming out in these videos. Starting here, so we've got actually a dig no dig comparison where two beds have the same amount of compost, and the only difference is that one I dig once a year and this one I don't touch it at all. So this is a lot less work. For 2 hours less work in December, already you can see the abundance is quite a lot more compared to here, where we've had slug problems have been much more pronounced on the dug bed, on the soil that's been disturbed. Definitely encourages slugs in some way, maybe by damaging the predators like ground beetles that eat slug eggs. So I put in a slug pup. I don't normally do that, and those lettuces have been replanted about 3 times actually. Some of them, they just keep disappearing. Whereas here, you know, it's not like there's anything wrong with the garden or anything, it's just the blooming digging because there you can see the lettuce are looking fine, and I've had to replace 2 on the edge only. We've also had a bit of frost, which is pretty typical actually for the time of year. These potatoes are early, but that's what you can see there, the damage on these leaves, because where they're touching the fleece, these beds have been covered with fleece, and they're going to stay covered because I want to keep the cold wind off more than anything. It's like yesterday the maximum temperature was 9:48 Fahrenheit. Today it might be 13 centigrade, 55 Fahrenheit. So we're definitely not into summer temperatures yet. It's not much above what it was in winter. Nights are quite cold, close to frost. So what we have got is light, and that's why covers are so useful for turning the spare light basically that's not being used because it's too cold, turn that into warmth. And then the greenhouse, like in here, I can feel as I walk in the temperature. In fact, we're up to, at the moment, 22 degrees in here compared to 10 degrees outside. So, and that's even with it not being much sunny. Hence all this propagation going on. And you can see there's, for example, tomatoes. In fact, tomatoes, we have planted a few already. I don't normally do it this early because it's a little bit risky. Our last frost date here is the middle of May. So that's in 3 weeks' time. Today's the 22nd of April. And the salads had finished a bit early actually, so I thought, well, let's go for it. We spread the compost, the annual dose we put on undercover, we put it on in spring. We got more time than in October, the 2 changeover times of cropping. So here we've gone from winter salad to summer tomatoes and everything else that goes in the summer, all of this stuff. And then in October we take all that out as it finishes and plant the winter salads. And the compost goes on in the spring around 4 centimetres, just over an inch. This is my hotbed, and it's cooling down a bit now. I need to put some more fresh horse manure on, but not too much. And you do need to be careful when doing that about the vapours that come off. And I think it'll be all right now because I'm not going to put on very much. It can singe the leaves sometimes. You can see these plants though are looking really healthy. For example, that's melon. It's about a month old now, compared to cucumbers, which are just 8 days since they were sown. And the melon started exactly the same as the cucumbers. In these are the trays I designed, the CD module trays. I pretty much start all my seeds in them, and then you can just pop up the little cell plug root with all the root on, and I just make a hole in the 7 centimetre pot like that. That's called potting on. And sometimes depends how ready the ground is to receive them, but we might pot them on again, so that some tomatoes we've already put into a slightly larger pot. That's called a 9C, I think it is, 9 centimetre pot. And so we got a whole range of propagation going on, including here. There's the first chard. I don't sow chard too early, so that's been sown just before the middle of April. If you sow it earlier than that, there's a risk of bolting, and that's multi-sown, and that'll be ready for going out in about 3 weeks, I should think. So it's ongoing, the propagation. Do check my calendar and sowing timeline for the dates, because we're less than halfway through the season of sowing. There's so much more, and a big load of succession sowing in early summer for when all of the plantings that you're going to see in this video, pretty much, they all finish sometime in the summer. We put a video out 2 videos ago, about 2 weeks ago, about succession. Do have a look at that. An interesting thing here about the compost, because I was given some to check, just someone wanted an opinion on it, and that's Melcourt. I'm not looking to name and shame here, because it's just interesting though, because this one came top in the Gardening Witch trials that were published this year, but that was checking last year's, and it shows how it varies every year. That's the standard Melcourt with chemical nutrients. This is the organic Melcourt. So, you know, you might have thought, well, it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? But we double check the sacks to make sure they look quite different as well. And then this, by comparison, is homemade. So that's the organic Melcourt. And this is what I'm using mostly. When I say homemade, it's actually 50% homemade compost, including about 10% of that is worm compost from my wormery. And the other 50% of the mix of the homemade is peat-free. And for me, that's the best at the moment of ones you can buy if you don't have homemade compost. And it costs about, in the UK, about £13 for 30 litres. Another really good one is Moorland Gold. And the rest, I mean, there's some good ones, but it seems more pot-luck. You know, you can't be sure what's going to happen. It can be so frustrating because, you know, all of that beautiful propagation, if you do all that with a bad compost, you're just not going to get a good result. And it's such a loss of seeds and time and everything. So, look at this. I mean, this is 22nd of April in a cold spring, and yet we've got quite a full garden already. Partly from overwintered plants, like the spinach here that we've been picking quite a lot. That was sown last August. And then peas, which are for pea shoots. These were sown in February, planted March, and we just picked them this morning actually. So you can see how some of them have, well, most of them have lost their tops. And it looks a bit dramatic at that point, but they regrow more shoots from the base. So it's a nice way of having a flavour of pea, you know, this early in the season. And very much, I'm always looking for earliness. And that's like with these broad beans here, for example, they were sown on 27th October last year and transplanted there about 3 weeks later in November. And, you know, if you sow them in the spring, they'd be way smaller. So it's just that thing of certain plants that you can get through the winter. It's a much easier way to have early harvest than the spring sowings. You know, it's just more risky. Like this year, this whole bed should have been carrots, and I've lost a lot to slugs, except for this end. And this interests me because I've not seen it before, where I've had this comparison of Home Safe seed, for example, there. So that's Home Safe carrot seed has just been stronger and resisted the slugs more, maybe compared to the other seed which I've been buying. So do look at all seed saving options. Again, we have got a video on that, and it's a good time of year to check that out because you can set the wheels in motion for some of them. And you can see I sowed radish between the carrots here. I can't see any radish, any carrots, I mean, sorry, it's just the radish. At least we've got a harvest of radish. It's a beautiful season of apple blossom at the moment, and we're just hoping there won't be any hard frost. These will take a very slight frost. That tree's about 3 years old. It's growing rather slowly. It's a bit too close to the big tree next to it, the cherry tree. And the tulips are gorgeous. So one advantage of cool weather is that any of these early flowers last for longer before they go to seed. And in fact, you can see how well the mesh is, the fleece is doing here, where I've got it over some onions. Although they're looking a bit yellow, that might even be frost damage again, but basically that's a strong onion. Normally I would take the fleece off at this stage, but in this case I'm not, because we're seeing a bit of allium leaf miner, not too much. But this could be a way, if I can keep this on, I might loosen it a bit actually, but it's incredible how well plants put up with fleece lying on them. And the advantage of that has been because we've had such high winds over the last 3 weeks that where I put the fleece up on hoops like this, there's some fennel under there, it's more inclined to get lifted by the wind. So that's why I'm quite keen, if I can, to have the fleece on the ground. But we'll see in a minute, that doesn't always work so well for slugs. So here we have radish. I've been harvesting radish this morning. This is multi-sown, sown in February, transplanted in March. And I left this bit just to show you because how we deal with bindweed. So I'm using a trowel. It's not exactly digging, but it is disturbing the soil more than I'd like. But if you can get a nice long root like that out, and then I'll tread the soil back down, and that'll go on the compost heap. It's totally fine to put that on the compost heap. But it's the way that we're keeping on top of bindweed. So there's another bit there. And all the time I'm looking to not let the bindweed get established or re-established, because this area here 3 years ago was solid bindweed. There was so much, and now there is hardly any. It's just around the edge. Edges is the most difficult, and I know some of you from allotments tell me you've got that difficulty even with neighbours' plots being dirty. And talking of edges, if I can find the edge, this is interesting, because Adam cut it yesterday using the half moon, but this one he took it back a bit because we decided the line could do with straightening. But a lot of this is edge that has grown in. So the original edge was there, and we haven't done any edging on this piece of ground since probably October. And when I'm doing this, I'm just looking to remove, get the soil out. There's a thistle even, for example. That's one of these super prickly thistles. But if you get that much root out, that's fine, that's gone. So this is a job that we're quite on at the moment, is edging, because it's been mild enough for the grass to grow well, even though not that warm every day. These sallows have thrived through the winter, so they went in the ground in October after tomatoes, and we've been picking them every fortnight in the winter, and now every week. They're going to be picked in a couple of days again. That lettuce up there, a brilliant Canobla Red, which just keeps cropping until June if you didn't need the space. So it's very long-lived plants. And here we have another new plant, which is turnip. So these were sown February, transplanted March. They had fleece over, and that's helped them to be cropping. I've already taken 2 quite big 4-kilo harvests of turnips off here, and they're beautiful, sweet Tokyo Cross. You can see they multi-sown. Already I've had some out of this bunch. You just keep coming back to take the bigger one. They have an amazing flavour, and at this time of year that's so precious because we haven't got many fresh vegetables at the moment. And I was picking some for the pub this morning, quite a big order of the radish and the turnips, finding quite a few slugs as I went, but not too much slug damage. So, you know, on the whole, I know I talk about slugs a lot, but I don't want to make it, I assure you it's not like we're overrun with them, but it's something I'm just always very aware of because it's potentially can be serious. And the asparagus, there's a very interesting difference here between crowns planted as crowns 3 years ago and some seed that I sowed 2 years ago. This should be the other way around, I'd have thought, but that seed, Ariane, is a very vigorous variety, and from seed it's done that. I'm not picking it, and that's why I've let it grow tall. I'll give it 1 more year of establishing, and we'll start picking all of this bed next year. But for growing from seed, that means we'll be picking in the 3rd spring. These have been in a while, but not too long. So purple sprouting broccoli, sown solstice last year, transplanted July after beetroot, so 2nd planting. And then we put the compost on. So with no dig, it's just working out when you can get the compost on the ground once a year. And this went on in November because we're de-leafing, always taking off the lower leaves, and that allows you to slot the compost in. So basically this ground, when the broccoli finish, will be ready for the next planting. We'll twist out the broccoli and plant. It could be courgettes, it could be climbing beans. There's so many things you could transplant in about a month's time, and they just need regular picking. They have given a lot, been really good planting. Whereas here, the carrots, again, being very slow with fleece on top. And I was looking at these earlier and decided that this fleece needs to come off because I'm seeing like some of the rows are looking really strong, and you can see lots of little baby carrots come up with the old radish, which is fine. But in other places, not so many. So that can be an issue with the fleece, that it's holding moisture in, which harbours slugs. So that's coming off, and we'll see what happens after that. This whole area is still quite new, and it hasn't had as much compost as the older garden, and I can see that in the garlic and the broad beans. They're not as strong up here, as they are down in the older garden. And then we got an issue with the rye this year. It's really strong wireworm damage on the roots, and we've actually amalgamated 5 beds into 2. Did some transplanting in February, and it should all be looking like this, and it's not. So yeah, tricky. While here we've planted potatoes, and we're going to have 4 beds of potatoes. This is a good time to plant potatoes. Just go for it any time now. Early's all main crops. Depends a bit on your last frost date, but for most of you it should be good. Well, here we have a piece of new ground. So this, just 2 months ago, was like the pasture you see beyond. Here we grow about 1 million dandelions per square metre. I know that some of you say I should be leaving the dandelions, but I can assure you there's just so many. And we're taking a bit of ground, using the polythene to deprive all of those existing plants of light, and that includes, as well as dandelions, buttercup. There's a lot of creeping buttercup here. And this is the effect. So you can see that's the light deprivation, and gradually the dandelion, the energy in its root runs out. You can see also quite a few slugs here like that, which I haven't found to be too much problem. Black plastic can hold slugs. You can see quite a few there actually. Oh yeah. But we're going to transplant squash here, and by towards the end of May it's drying up a bit, and the squash plants are quite strong. We'll use last year's holes. That piece of plastic is 4 years old and it's been used a lot. Just before I mention that again though, I want to show you here this beautiful wild rocket. Do you see how healthy it is with this mesh keeping the insects off? And beyond that, the multi-sown leeks, that's a variety called Bandit, which is, if you want leeks this late, that's a really good variety to sow now. In fact, you know, up till the end of April is a really good time for sowing leeks, including those late ones. Yeah, and over here is where we had the black plastic on the ground through the winter months. So from November to February, the plastic was just not doing anything, so we just put it out here, and if we hadn't done that, this piece of ground would be looking like over there, where you just see all those buttercups and grasses and nettles and everything. And it's certainly not clean soil now, but that's fine. What it's done is it's taken away most of the vigour from the buttercups, and most of what's growing there is actually wildflowers, perennial wildflowers, and I sowed some more. And there's a few apple trees which Adam grafted last spring, and he just planted them there. We'll see what happens. I'm just hoping the deer don't come along. We might need to put some deer guard on. This pond is turning into quite a joy. The old one is now officially a wet dry feature, and it's actually quite dry at the moment. Even after the rain we've had, it drains remarkably fast, whereas here with the liner the water remains. And we've been seeing quite a few newts, and Adam was pointing out this morning, he's very good on this. You see there's that green thing on the liner wall, that's a dragonfly larva. And he says that's in the lymph stage, will turn into a dragonfly maybe fairly soon. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun having a real pond that keeps its water. Compost. These are the compost heaps as they are at the moment, where you can see the current heap, and that's just what went in this morning. We were picking rhubarb and salads, and there's some grass mowings, and it's already feeling warm actually. But that's just because I've got enough stuff to keep putting it in quite quickly. That's 3 weeks only to get that much. Usually we fill one of these within about 2 months, and then on the other end of the 3 is the finished one, which is now maturing and waiting to be turned into the middle bay. So the middle bay already has compost turned into it. This was 3 weeks ago, and this compost is about 6 months old, and look how nice it is already. I'm very happy with what I'm seeing there, and also how dry it feels. You know, I'm quite surprised about that actually, considering the rain we've had. But you know, we've been putting in, what it means is the contents have been very wet when they go in. But you can see the worms starting to come in there now that it's cooled down. It's just slightly warm. But we keep the corrugated iron over it, once the heaps are finished, and I've just taken it off to show you in the video. So there's a cover over the finished compost there, or nearly finished, and the maturing there, but we don't have any cover on the current heap. That would take too long to keep removing it, so that just keeps being filled like that. And then just to finish, I'd just love you to see, you know, this beautiful panorama of lovely beds and crops, not far off picking, a lot of them still with the covers on. So these covers stay on maybe for 2 more weeks until it really does warm up a bit, I hope. Probably will take them off then, because they do actually, when they're on the hoops, keep a bit of rain out. This is quite an old fleece, you can see by the holes in it. Maybe 3 years old. I'm totally happy with a few holes at this stage. I have got some fleece I'm trialling though, made from plant matter, and that will be interesting. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a good one. You can check out the Crocus website. I'm just doing a partnership with them, and there's a list of recommended products there on their website, which includes fleece and mesh made from plant matter. And yeah, look at this. I mean, these are good. We were just this morning picking a bed quite like this. Once those lettuce get a little bit bigger, we actually start to harvest them, and then they carry on cropping for a long time. So there you are. I hope you've enjoyed the little tour in April. Probably do another one in about 6 weeks or so. We've also got ones that we're publishing now looking more ahead and jobs for the coming month, and the next one will be for May. Soon going to be May. So I'll see you there.